G'day guys, my name's Christian from CHASA, and today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my favourite duck recipes, slow-cooked duck barbacoa. So this is a slow-cooked Mexican recipe. I believe it is usually done with pork, however today we are doing it with wild Australian duck. It's a relatively easy recipe. It's just as simple as we're going to make a quick marinade. We're going to brown some duck legs in our pan, put them in the pot, put the marinade in, put some stock in, and throw them in the oven for a few hours, and then they'll be done. At the end, we can shred the meat, and we can use it for all sorts of different things. You could make a bowl with it, treat it a bit like pulled pork. You could make, or I like to make a taco with it. So this is some 2021 duck legs. So here we've got a combination of teal, black ducks and wood ducks. One of the things I like about legs over breast is the legs, as you can see, have got this lovely layer of fat under the skin. And when we put it in the oven and slow cook it, that fat will render out and permeate through our meat. And then when we shred it, we can mix it all up again and make it into a lovely, lovely, lovely dish. So we'll start with the easy one to make the marinade. We're going to take some onion, some garlic. I'm using garlic granules because that's what I've got. Some citrus fruits, this can vary. I've got a lemon and a couple of small oranges, but you can use lime juice. I've pretty much used anything. The only one I don't really like to use is grapefruit because I find it to be a bit bitter. We're also going to add a teaspoon of cumin and a teaspoon of cloves, a couple of bay leaves and some salt. We're also going to add some apple cider vinegar, and then right at the end to cover it, we're going to just add some chicken stock, just a litre of chicken stock to cover it for while we're cooking in the oven. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is soak these dried garlic granules. The recipe calls for about 6 cloves of garlic, which is just over a tablespoon of these garlic granules. All right, so I'll put some water in the garlic granules, a little food processor, a little blender here. We're going to add, I usually do 3 of these small bay leaves off my grandmother's bay tree, a teaspoon of ground cumin, and a teaspoon, or whatever's left in here, just under a teaspoon of ground cloves. With the ratios, it doesn't really matter. I've used no cumin, I've used an all clove, I've used no clove and all cumin. It makes a little bit of a difference to flavour, but it doesn't matter heaps. Now, traditionally, this recipe would have chilli in it. I don't really like chilli, so I'm not adding any, but feel free to add either fresh chilies or chili flakes or powder to your taste. Then we are going to add roughly a tablespoon of flaky salt. Now we're going to cut up our onion. Now when you're chopping this, it doesn't need to be like finely diced or anything. It's going in a food processor. If you were using a big, worry food processor that sits on your bench, then you could just put the onion in whole and it'd be fine. Obviously take the skin off. All right, so we need a total of a half cup of apple cider vinegar. I'm going to start with only a little bit, because this blender doesn't have a huge volume. So that was about a quarter of a cup. I don't want to overflow the blender while I'm trying to make it go. I'm then going to add a bit of my onion and my garlic granules that you can sort of see on my finger there have puffed up a little bit. That's obviously got a bit of water with it, that's all right. Very fiddly. And then just blend it up. It gets a little bit messy, it drops everywhere, but that's all right. We just wipe the bench down later, put the rest of your onion in. The reason we only put it in a bit at a time is just so that it doesn't overflow the blender. I'm now going to add the rest of my apple cider vinegar. Again, about another quarter of a cup. And then other than the citrus, which we'll add right at the end because it won't all fit in here, yeah, that's pretty much your marinade done. Now it's time to brown the legs. So now we're going to put the bulk of our marinade into our ducks. So it's just going to go on like that. Then I'm going to take some chicken stock and I'm just going to fill this up with chicken stock. And then pouring him in just to wash out the rest of that. And I'll take the rest of my chicken stock and pour it in here. Now I'm going to juice lemon and 2 little oranges. So because the oranges have no seeds in them, I'm going to add this pulp to the mix. I've got my juice here. We're just going to give it one final mix, settle everything, make sure everything's pretty much covered. I don't like to let it evaporate much at all. So close the steam vent, and then we're going to put it in the oven. As I've just used this oven, it's already preheated, but I'm just going to turn it to 120 degrees, hit the go button, make a note of the time you put it in, and that's that. Now you've got to wait for anywhere between 4 and 6 hours. I like to leave it for 2, and then I'm going to take it out, check it just with a fork. You just take your fork and maybe a pair of tongs and just, if it's falling off the bone, then it's good to go. If not, leave it and check it every 30 minutes, 45 minutes after that 2 hour period. And then righto, so we're done. We've cooked up our dish.
Took 4 hours?
Took us 4 hours for this one. Our pot of duck legs. So they've reduced in size and the liquid's reduced in volume. Now what we're going to do is shred them. So I've got a chopping board here that has these liquid catching sides. Because this is obviously quite a liquidy dish, you're going to want a chopping board that's not going to let the liquid run all over your bench. So now we're just going to transfer these legs onto here. So this liquid, I'm just going to put it over there, and then when I've shredded all this meat, I will take a little bit of this liquid with some of the solid spices and the ground onions or the blended onion and stuff in it, and I'll put it with that to store it. This freezes quite well. You can freeze it in, like I like to freeze it in little round like takeaway containers that would feed sort of 3 to 4 people, depending on how many people are in your household, obviously. But yeah, the rest of the liquid, once you've taken that away, you could add it to the next batch. You could freeze it, or you can just throw it away. I'm going to take this bowl and I'm going to take my legs out of my duck, taking the meat off the bone, just like that. Now, this is a little bit of skin. You can, if you want to, leave that in your pile of meat. Some people like to eat it, some people do not. It is completely up to you. I would suggest trying it. Dad and I quite like to eat it, but plenty of people don't, so it's totally up to you what you do. So there's a whole variety of different things that can be done with this barbacoa. You could put it in a bowl with rice and have like a burrito bowl style of thing. You could put it in a tortilla and have a taco. You could even put it with pasta. Being a Southern or Central American dish, pasta's not really its aim, but it could certainly be done if you were that way inclined. It's got a whole range of uses. I treat it a bit like pulled pork, so anything you can do with pulled pork, you can do with this pretty much. It's the same principle, it's just obviously a different meat and some different flavours and things like that. When you're shredding the meat, just be a little bit aware. When you are hunting ducks, obviously sometimes the bones get a little bit fragmented, and so you'll end up with little pieces of broken bones sometimes like that. So just make sure when you're going through the meat that you feel it, go through it, and get the bits of bone or any pellets or anything like that out. One other thing to consider is give it a little bit of time to cool, whether it's in the oven or or on the bench or whatever, before you do this, because otherwise it's going to be really hot and you'll burn your fingers, and then you won't sort it properly and you won't shred it properly, and you will end up with little bits of bone and things like that left in your dish at the end. Righto, so there's duck barbacoa to do with whatever you please, pasta, burrito bowl, taco, you choose. I'll try a little bit. It's really nice. Takes away a little bit of the gamey flavour of the duck, and it really brings out, it's got lots of acid in it with the citrus and the vinegar. And it's got a bit of that spices of the cumin and the cloves and anything else you might put in it. Obviously, if you put chili in it, it'll be a bit spicy. If you don't, it won't. My name's Christian from CHASA. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to know anything else about wild game cooking, hunting, tips and tricks, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you know when we upload a new video.